From Los Angeles, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand, and thanks for joining us for another edition of the Puck Podcast. It is Sunday, October the 12th, 2025. This is our first period of a three-period podcast. The first period, which some of you are watching on YouTube, will cover all the news from the past week in the NHL, including several big-name players agreeing to new contracts, including that guy in Edmonton. Second period, we're going to recap all of the games from the opening week of the NHL, or the opening first few days of the NHL. It was a weird schedule. We're going to give you some scores. We're going to give you some notes and talk about some of the wackiness that went on in the first few days of the NHL season. Third period's our fan feedback segment. We read listener emails. We have our off-ice report telling what's going on with us. All three periods of the podcast you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. If you like what you're seeing, also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube show. And occasionally, we will have overtime with a special feature or an interview.
Is this one of those weeks?
No.
Okay. Then why did you bring that up?
Because I want people to know we have not abandoned the interviews or special features, but they will be select here and there.
Gotcha. Now it's making sense. Okay. Well, we are officially into our 20th season of covering the entirety of the NHL. When we started, there were only 30 teams. There are now 32, as two teams have been added out here in the West on the best coast, as Eddie and I like to call it. And I call it that for a reason. I will get into that in a little bit, I think. But we've been doing the show since July 22nd, 2006. We cover the entire league. We treat every team equally. He's a Kings fan, I'm a Ducks fan, but we don't favor our teams too much. But we do try and cover every team. Wherever the biggest story is around the league, that's where we always start. And for that, I turn it over to my good friend, my co-host, my confederate, my lover, Eddie Garcia.
That last part is not true, but it is from an old movie that we like, so I will accept it. So our big story is the story that you were confident, almost 100% confident was going to happen, and I was not. I was skeptical. I was like, why is this taking so long?
I would say you were hopeful. You were letting your heart beat your mind on that one because you hate the Oilers and you want them to be weakened.
True and true. But I was like, if it was going to do it, why is it taking so long? Well, Connor McDavid did, in fact, sign an extension with the Edmonton Oilers. The amounts and the length of the extension are interesting. It's 2 years, and he's going to make $12.5 million per season. So that's 2 years after this season, and he's making the exact same amount of money that he was making going into this contract. So he's not getting a raise. He's 28 years old, considered the best player in the world, 1,082 points in 712 games, 361 goals, 5 scoring titles, 3 Hart trophies. 2024 became the second skater ever to win the Conn Smythe as a playoff MVP in a losing effort. 0 Stanley Cup appearances, though. 0 Stanley Cup championships, 2 appearances. And that's why he's done what he's done. And you and I talked about this, Doug. We talked about Sidney Crosby. We talked about taking less money so that you can help your team win a championship. And you and I both said we would do it. And $12.5 million a year is a ridiculous amount of money.
Yep.
However, he's worth more, a lot more. And we all would probably like to be paid what we can get. At the same time, winning a championship to me, if I'm a professional athlete, that's what I'm in it for. Sure, to provide for my family and to have a comfortable life for me and my children. He's done that. That's going to happen.
Right.
Connor McDavid wants to win a championship. He's given the Edmonton Oilers a hometown discount for a couple of years. Now they're on the clock. They got 3 years to win a title. And then what he says after that, who knows? He might say, okay, we tried it. It ain't working. Goodbye. But for the next few years, he's going to be there. And I'm sure the union does not like this one bit, but in the end, Connor McDavid has said, it's my life. It's my contract. I'm going to do what I want. And this is what he feels is best for him. And as you said, I don't like the Oilers. I don't like him because my team competes against him. I applaud him for doing this. If this is what he wants, I have no issues with it. And like I said, if I was him, I'd have done pretty much the exact same thing.
Well, to your point about the surprising, interesting, when it got announced that it was a 2-year deal for $25 million, I know some people read it and thought it was per year and thought, wow, he really
Yeah.
but it's not outrageous.
No, it's not.
That
It's not.
it's not to the point of that you can't believe that would be true. And
Although,
then you
is that
realize
possible? I don't think that's possible, right? Because there's a certain percentage of the cap. You can only earn a certain percentage, right? I don't know if
20%.
that's 20%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I'm not doing the math in my head. I don't know what 20% of 113 million down the road is going to be. So, but when you hear that, you're like, man, he really blew Kirill Kaprizov's contract right out of the water. And then you realize that's total. And then it didn't make any sense when you first hear it. Like, why a 2-year deal? Why not get a single dollar more? Why not at least match what Draisaitl's making? And I've heard some discussion, and I agree with it, that it is interesting that it falls on him to take a pay cut, not the other players. Draisaitl didn't take a pay cut. He didn't take less for the team. Bouchard didn't take less for the team. All these guys that they're signing are not taking less, but he is going to take less, even though he's the best player in the world. He can go wherever he wants. Now, the other side of it is exactly what you talked about. He's never going to worry about a bill ever again. How am I going to put food on the table? We may lose the house, honey. That's never going to happen. He's making $12.5 million per year for each of just the next 3 years. So just that alone is life-changing lottery win money. And that's not even his entirety of his contract. And when his contract is up, I don't think he's going to say to Edmonton, it's not working, we tried, I'm out of here. I think he's going to say, okay, it's time for me to be paid what I'm worth. I'm still in my prime, and I would like $20 million a year, please. I gave you a discount. That discount is over. That cup window has closed. Time to pay me what I'm worth. And then you can try and build around that. So it is a crazy good deal for Edmonton. And you may say, why would he accept that? He brought that number to them. He called the Oilers. He and his agent called the Oilers early this week or this past week on Sunday or Monday and said, this is the terms I am comfortable with. And they, of course, said, you got it. Let's get the paperwork signed and filed with the league, because that is a great deal for the Edmonton Oilers. They get oodles of cap space to play with. They have their core pieces locked up for the next 3 seasons with plenty of flexibility to go and make moves and add talent. So fantastic deal for Edmonton. I applaud him as well, because ultimately, while you're right, the union has got to be like, well, this is going to hurt our negotiation as free agents. If he's making $12.5 million, how do I then go say I deserve more than Connor McDavid as a free agent? Well, you're going to, because Kirill Kaprizov exists. And so if the team wants to use that as a leverage against you, you can say, I'm also as good as Kirill Kaprizov, and he's making $17 million. So let's find a number closer to that. So it does. I don't think it really hurts the negotiation overall. And ultimately, the players have decided, they've negotiated with the owners for, we're going to make 50% of revenue. You present us with what the league made each year. Half of that goes to the players, half of that goes to the owners, and the salary cap is what it is, and we get to spend to the salary cap. So it may not go to Connor McDavid, but it's going to go to some players on the Edmonton Oilers. They're going to be a cap spending team. They're not going to let dollars go to waste. So ultimately, the Oilers are not saving money in this. They are just getting a better roster because of this.
Well, I think that's why it's a 2-year deal. I think he has said, okay, I'm taking less. Now the onus is on you to make sure we have the best roster possible, because you now have that money to spend that I didn't take. So you better do that for the next three years. And if you don't, then I'm going somewhere else that will, or whatever.
Oh yes, but believe me, they will. I mean, it's Edmonton. It's not a. I think they'll spend to the cap, and it just gives them that flexibility. Now the argument against that's how you and I would approach it personally, because I think we both have a number in our minds that it's like, if I had this much money, I would not work anymore. I would just be good for life. I would retire. I would enjoy my life, and that would be that. And there are people that are not like that. There are people that are rich that are like, I need more, and I'll do any project that comes my way, no matter what it costs me as far as my reputation or my dignity, because I need more money. I don't get that mentality personally. I look at extremely rich people that are doing commercials for products they don't believe in. And I'm like, why would you do this? Why would you debase yourself for a paycheck when you don't need the money? Because it's never enough for them. And I don't get that. But Connor McDavid, and we also know the owners, the 32 NHL owners, would never take less than their worth, would never do something that was for the good of the team or take less profits. They are there to make money and increase the value of their franchise. That's how they all got to be billionaires, is by making sure that they got every dollar they were ever owed. So it's got to be a foreign concept to them. They got to think he's a complete sucker, but they got to love it because it shows and we saw Sidney Crosby do this. Sidney Crosby always had that thing where he'd make $8.7 million because that was his number, and it worked out, and it was a lot of money, and he's going to make plenty of endorsements and all that stuff, so he's never going to go broke, but he was worth far more than that in his prime, but that's what he got. So he took less to keep the team competitive. Now Sidney Crosby is doing it. It's we've seen a lot of Panthers, or Connor McDavid. We've seen a lot of Florida Panthers do this. They're taking less than they're worth on the open market to stay in Florida and keep that championship team going. So it was very interesting, but the Oilers' cup window remains wide open now. They have plenty of money to go and invest. And at the trade deadline, they can be active to not only add players for this year, but add players with term. So they know they have cap space for next season and the season beyond that. So if a player is available that still has a year or two left on his deal, that player is available to the Oilers more so than it would have been had McDavid said, I'd like my $17.5 million a year, please, because they're saving at least $5 million per season on what McDavid is worth.
Well, I assume in related news, the Oilers signed defenseman Jake Wallman to a 7-year deal worth $49 million. They signed defenseman Matthias Ekholm to a 3-year extension, and they also signed Jake Roslovic to a 1-year deal.
Yeah, well, the Roslovic isn't part of it because that's only for this year. And so the McDavid contract is for beyond this season. He was already under contract. But it's certainly the Wallman and Ekholm, that they knew exactly what they had to spend. And they're like, well, we can keep these key pieces together now and then add to it from there. So the Oilers core is definitely in place. It is on as you said, the onus is on Stan Bowman to use the cap space effectively to keep this team as competitive as possible, as deep as possible, so that they can make multiple more Stanley Cup runs while Connor McDavid is there. And we will see if that is the case, because even though he took the discount, it's no guarantee, obviously. Pro sports is a fickle beast. And
somebody could get hurt.
And let's be honest, if your Kings don't make a coach's challenge, or if Quentin Byfield clears the puck, they don't advance. If one of those two things happens in the first round, they get eliminated. Somebody can get hurt. You just get a bad bounce.
Maybe,
but most likely they're going to go, 3-1 lead coming home. You got a better chance. Anyway, so they got lucky in the first round. They got lucky a couple of years ago in the second round, I believe it was. But regardless, just because they have this is not a guarantee. They've made 2 Stanley Cup finals in a row. Making a third would be pretty amazing. The Panthers have done that, and they've won 2 of them. But 3 and 4 years, 4 and 5 years would be remarkable in a deep Western Conference.
Well, the dominoes are starting to fall now. Jack Eichel and the Vegas Golden Knights agree on an 8-year extension, $108 million. He'll make $13.5 million per season. He's 28, was drafted. He was the second pick after McDavid, correct? They were in the same draft class. Right. Now, unlike McDavid, he has won a Stanley Cup, but he doesn't have quite the hardware individually that Connor McDavid does. But this past year, he had a MVP caliber type season. He was 5th in the Selke Trophy voting. He was 5th in the Hart Trophy voting. Jack Eichel, as Vegas always does, they find a way, and he is locked up long-term now in Vegas.
Yeah, and I think that's also, I don't know that his is as much of a discount. I don't think it is, as a matter of fact. I think Eichel, that's about right for him because he's a very good player. As you mentioned, he had a great year last year. He's won a Stanley Cup, but I wouldn't call him one of the top 10 players in the NHL. He's on the second list. He's an A player, but he's not an A+ player. So that's a fair price for Jack Eichel, and it keeps him where he's been happy, where he's had team success, he's had individual success. They've got a good thing going in Vegas on paper, but that's a very good deal for Vegas to get him. Him and Mitch Marner are secured for long-term contracts, and they can build around two key pieces at forward, knowing what they have, knowing that they have an elite top line, if nothing else, an elite pairing that they can build around. And then we'll see who they fill the rest of the roster out with. But that's a good deal for them. And there was one other deal, I believe, that you have to mention.
Yeah, the
as far
Winnipeg
as
Jets.
a key deal, yeah. But so we'll get to that because then I have comments about the others.
Well, the Winnipeg Jets took care of their top forward, Kyle Connor. 8 years, $96 million extension. He'll make $12 million a year. It's the richest contract in Jets history. He's 28, career high, 56 assists, 97 points in 82 games last year. He ranks top 20 among NHL skaters in goals and points since 2021. Two-time 40-goal scorer, five-time 30-goal scorer in parts of 10 seasons, all with Winnipeg.
Yeah, a quiet superstar there in Winnipeg. Winnipeg gets overlooked by a lot of the national media, even though they won the President's Trophy last year and were an elite team in the regular season. But he is an absolutely sensational scorer, and he's a pure goal scorer. It does help the Jets there's been that thing for a long time that players don't want to play in Winnipeg. They're on a lot of people's no trade list.
Well, players don't seem to want to go there, but
once
the players
they're there,
that
they
are there,
yes,
they stay. They do.
Yeah, because Connor Hellebuck is staying. Mark Scheifele is staying. Now Kyle Connor is staying. And those are all elite players that could have had their pick of teams in free agency had they wanted to do that. So it's very nice for Winnipeg. Crazy that he's making basically Connor McDavid money, that he's making just $500,000 less. And that's when you compare the two, you're like, how can that work? Because Connor McDavid took significantly less than he is worth. So I thought it was interesting timing for those three teams, that all three of them got their deals done before their team started the season. And it's an artificial deadline that some teams and players have for whatever reason. And so a lot of people were talking about teams saving their cap space, Eddie, for the elite free agency class of 2026. My God, look at all the players that are going to be available.
Yep.
Gone. Because now the top three players available, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Marty Necas is a UFA after this year, and he's off to a great start with the Avalanche as a right wing. Adrian Kempe with the LA Kings is a UFA after this year. He's also a right wing, correct?
Left wing.
Left wing. Winger, not a center. Right. And then Artemi Panarin, also a winger, not a center. Those are the three elite free agents left, and none of them signed before their team started the season. Now, as we talked about last week when we were going over Connor McDavid and some of the other players that are unsigned, I said I'm pretty confident in Adrian Kempe re-signing with the Kings, though I'm not sure why it hasn't been done, because he's only played for the Kings. And I think there is a loyalty, there's a comfort level there for him. The other two are kind of hired guns at this point, and Artemi Panarin's been on three teams. I think he'd be perfectly fine playing for a fourth and making the most money possible in free agency. So I'm not confident he's going to re-sign with the Rangers. And Marty Necas is having a great start and looks very comfortable with Nathan MacKinnon, but I can see him saying as well, I'd like to pick where I play now. I got traded, I got drafted, I got traded. I didn't want either one of them. Now I have a chance to dictate where I play and for how much. And that may be appealing to him. And he may leverage this ice time and this pairing with Nathan MacKinnon into being the biggest, highest paid player in the league, because I think he could do that if he made himself available to all 32 teams and said, who among you will offer me the biggest paycheck? I will. So I think those three are very interesting, and I'm not sure. Like I said, the artificial deadline, the soft deadline that all three of those other guys had, Connor, Eichel, and McDavid, they wanted the deal done before the season started. It's not a distraction. It's done. I can go focus on the season. Off we go. The other three guys did not do that. And it doesn't prevent them from signing. They could be signed while we're on the air tonight. They could be signed next week. They could be signed 4 months from now. They have until July 1st before they are unrestricted free agents. A lot of time, and a lot can change. So, but it is interesting. The prices are set now. I think all three are looking at minimum $12 million a year deals because that's what Kyle Connor got. And I think that's a good comparable for all three guys. So I think minimum that price for all three, and maybe it goes up from there if as it gets closer to free agency, and that carrot at the end of the stick gets more tempting of I'm only a few months away from hearing what all 32 teams have to say. So why wouldn't I wait and see that? Why would I accept this? You're going to have to pay a little bit more to get me to pass up free agency and the temptation that lies with it. So it is interesting, but the free agency pool that teams have been salivating over, that fans, I should say, were salivating over, has dried up, as we knew it would, because it always does.
Just for the record, Natchez is 26, Kempe 29, and Artemi Panarin is 33. So as far as the length of the deals they might get, it certainly could vary based on the age of.
Natchez is extremely appealing to all 32 teams. My God.
Yeah.
Big boy, right-handed shot.
Can play center and wing.
And can snipe. That is a guy every team. And as you mentioned, 26. So I signed him to a 7-year deal. I got him till he's 33, 34. He's not over the hill. I'm getting his prime years. Every team is going to be tripping over themselves to get him. And Panarin that's an interesting one because as much as he is a very good player, an elite scorer, I'm not sure I want to commit to him in his mid to late 30s.
Yeah.
So I'll give him a short-term deal, 3-4 year deal at the most, but I'm not giving him a 5 or 6 year deal at all. So it'll be interesting to see how those three play out. And then Kempe, as you mentioned, he's sneaky old. You know, you still think of him as kind of being a youngish player, more 26, 27, 29, turning 30. I don't know if I'm willing to invest a 7-year deal in him, but somebody certainly will because of his scoring ability.
Some quick other signings. Florida signs forward Jonah Gadjevich, 2-year extension. Vegas signs forward Alexander Holt, 2-year extension. Devils signed forward Luke Glendening to a 1-year deal. Dallas signs forward Adam Ernie to a 1-year deal. Rangers signed forward Connor Sheary to a 1-year deal. Some injury news. Of course, the season starts, so there's always going to be some injuries because of that. Oilers defenseman Jake Wallman, who just got the extension, placed on injured reserve.
The contract.
Yeah, that was before. That was in training camp, so he hasn't. This wasn't him getting hurt, in a regular season game. Sabres forward Josh Norris is going to be out a significant amount of time with an upper body injury.
That did happen during the regular season.
Yes. Avs defenseman Sam Girard, week to week, lower body injury. Rangers forward Vincent Trocheck, week to week, upper body injury. Hurricanes goalie Pyotr Kochetkov out at least a week, lower body injury. And Devils forward Evgeny Dadonov out multiple games with a fractured hand.
That'll do it.
I thought it would be, fractured hand. You think that's going to be weeks, but it said multiple games. So I guess it could still be multiple games, but
weeks is multiple games. Of course that is a fractured hand. Like you said, a broken finger will keep you out multiple games. A fractured hand, my goodness. Plus, if everybody knows it, we know this league, we know competitive players, they're going to be hitting that hand as often as they can.
Law and Order report, J.J. Mosier of the Tampa Bay Lightning gets a 2-game suspension. Scott Sabrin, a 4-game suspension for that brawl-filled final preseason game against the Panthers. Also, the Lightning organization was fined $100,000, and Coach John Cooper was fined $25,000 by the NHL.
I heard reports that the NHL and Gary Bettman in the front office were very displeased with that performance in that game. They thought it made him look bad, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess I see what they're saying, but at the same time, because basically that game, that incident got so much national sports coverage, right? That it looked like a circus. You got players fighting all over the place. As our friend Gary said, looked like a yard sale, equipment everywhere, sticks, gloves, helmets, guys strewn all about. Excuse me. But so I get why that would look bad. But at the same time, it was a preseason game between the Lightning and Panthers. Nobody would have been talking about the NHL if not for that. And I can tell you this, because I work with a lot of people that are big sports fans. They didn't know the NHL was starting. They didn't know that it was about to be the regular season because the NFL is going on. College football is going on. The baseball playoffs are going on. There's other things in sports that are commanding people's attention right now. And that at least got hockey on national sports networks to talk about it and say, look at this. And it's a reminder that, oh, the NHL is in action, is being played. So I actually think it was a good thing for the NHL to remind people we exist and we are starting our season right now. And this is why we're different than other leagues, because you don't see this in other leagues. You don't see a brawl of 10 players or more in the NBA or the NFL preseason. You just don't.
Yeah, rarely. Yeah.
So I don't think it was a bad thing, but the league was embarrassed and they dropped the hammer on just the Lightning, which I thought was interesting. Now, I will say the Thursday game, both teams seemed to be the instigators. Both teams seemed to be causing trouble. The Saturday game, which is the one that we're referencing here that they got suspended for, the Lightning were out of control. They were going after people like they had, sexually assaulted their sisters. Like, take it easy, man. I get that it's a rivalry. I get that we got something going here, but you're waylaying people that have no interest in fighting. And Scott Sabrin, as I said, he looked absolutely out of control. Like, if the refs had a taser, I would have used it on him. Like, this guy he's got just his eyes look like an animal. Take it easy, man.
That would have been something. Tase him. He's out of control.
But no, it was so I thought I know a lot of Lightning fans were outraged that why just us? Your team was out of control, and that's why the organization and the coaching staff got fined as well, because it wasn't just one player going rogue. It was like, hey, this game doesn't count in the standings. We don't like these guys. Let's go out there and kick their ass no matter what and get it out of our system. And they did, and they literally paid the price for it.
There was one other suspension from after the regular season started. Jonathan Drouin of the Islanders, 1-game suspension for a cross-check to the face of Pittsburgh's Connor Dewar, which is how it's pronounced. I've been calling him Dewar because there is a W in there, but apparently it's pronounced Dewar. So there you go.
There are some names in the NHL, man. I know that we've long struggled with a lot of name pronunciations, and the NHL has long had that problem of how do you say this guy's name? And Arbor Jacki is the best example of current players. But once you learn how to say it, you learn how to say it as an NHL fan. It's just the new fans that are like, how in the hell do you say that? But it's those names. It's is it Roy or Wah? I never know until I hear them say it in the broadcast, or I hear him say his name, because it could be either. So it's spelled the exact same. It's pronounced differently. And something like that, Dewar, until you hear it. The one that still gets me is Will Cooley.
Yeah.
I see that name and I'm like, that's not Cooley. I know that's what it is, but that's not Cooley. What I'm reading is not Cooley. So it's like I almost have to just remove the name and just think of the player and just be like, yes, that's Will Cooley.
Yes. One random shot, Michael McLeod, one of the 5 players acquitted in the sexual assault charges for Hockey Canada, signs a contract extension to play in the KHL, 3-year deal with Avangard Omsk.
An extension? He was already there?
He was already there, and now he will be there for a little while longer, I assume. So,
well, assume so. Is he the only player of that group that's under
playing
contract
right now? Yes.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to mention? Anything I might have slipped through my fingers that did not relate to obviously on ice action, because we're going to get into all the game recaps coming up.
Just a quick thing I'll just say the one thing that kind of stood out to me, and it's kind of game related, but it's not. Have you noticed, Eddie Garcia, and maybe I am blanking on this being the case in the past, but all goalie neck guards are gone. Have you noticed that? You know that flap, the plastic thing that fell down below
Patrick
the mask?
Waugh used to always wear that. That's the first person that came into my mind, Patrick Waugh.
But there were players that wore that over the years because of they're all gone. And they've all got this thing that looks like a cool towel wrapped around their neck that I believe is to keep them from getting cut by skates. But it doesn't. As I was looking at the games this weekend, I was like, that doesn't protect you from a slap shot to the throat or a stick to the throat or anything of that nature. And you're exposed. And when you're splayed out, the neck is quite exposed. It's just something that struck me. I don't know if that was the case last year or not. I'd have to go back and watch some games, but it really struck me when I saw a few goalies getting a drink after letting in a goal, and they go back there and let me hydrate real quick. I just thought, man, that is a lot of flesh that I'm not used to seeing there.
Perhaps. I do know that little part that would dangle down, there weren't many goalies that wore that. I mean, Waugh did, and he's obviously high profile, so you remember that. But I think it was a very few handful of goalies that actually would wear that thing that hung down and try to protect your throat there.
I guess so. But anyway, that just struck me. And then a lot of new jerseys around the league, more than I thought coming in. And it seems like every team's some of them are third jerseys, some of them are centennial jerseys or anniversary jerseys, something of that nature. But as I was watching games, it just struck me. I'm like, is that their new look? And then there were some that were just slightly different, just color changes that were like, is that? And then you look it up and it's like, it's actually a new jersey. It's not just you misremembering what their previous color scheme was. So, but man, it was nice to have hockey back. It was just nice to have games on almost a nightly basis.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, but it was good to have hockey back for sure.
All right, well, that'll do it for our first period of the YouTube show. If you enjoyed it and you want to hear more, check out the remaining 2 periods of the podcast. Search for Puck Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. If you are listening to the podcast already, the second and third periods are coming right up. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand. What? Wait a minute. I gave you extra time.
I'm giving you an opportunity here. Take it easy. Save your venom and vitriol for later in the show because we'll need it. Tell the good people watching on YouTube what they are going to hear in the second period that makes them want to go find the show and tune in.
I said that at the top of the show.
I know it's game recaps, but what's a hot take? What's something you got coming up that they're going to want to hear?
We're going to talk about every game. Every game.
The NHL show of record.
We're stupid enough to talk about every game. I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand. And if you're on the YouTube show, we will talk to you next time with another edition of the Puck Podcast.